For more than 100 years, American history books recorded what happened in Wilmington, North Carolina in November of 1898 as a riot. A race riot. The word tells you it was chaos, spontaneous, two-sided, a thing that erupted and burned itself out. That word was a lie, and it was chosen on purpose. What happened in Wilmington was not a riot. It was a coup, the violent overthrow of a lawfully elected government by an armed mob that had planned it for months. It is the only successful coup against a local government in the history of the United States. And the men who carried it out didn't hide afterward. They gave speeches. They posed for photographs. They ran the city they had just seized. This is dark chapters in history. To understand what was stolen, you have to understand what Wilmington was in 1898, because it doesn't match the story most people carry about the American South in that era. Wilmington was North Carolina's largest city, and it was majority black. It had a thriving black middle class, business owners, tradesmen, professionals. Black men served as aldermen, as magistrates, as police officers. The city had a black-owned daily newspaper. This was not a community waiting to be liberated. It was one that had already built power and was exercising it, within a biracial political coalition that had won control of the state government. That coalition was called Fusion, an alliance of black Republicans and white populists that had, through the ballot box, taken power in North Carolina in the 1894 and 1896 elections. They won, legally, at the polls. And to the white conservative Democrats they had displaced, that victory was intolerable, not because it was illegitimate, but precisely because it wasn't. So a group of the state's most prominent white leaders decided that if they could not win at the ballot box, they would take power another way. This was not a secret conspiracy of fringe extremists. It was organized openly by the elite. Newspaper editors, former congressmen, business leaders. A man named Alfred Waddell, a former U.S. congressman, became one of its public faces. The Democratic Party ran a statewide campaign built explicitly on white supremacy for the 1898 election, and the press was its engine. Josephus Daniels, editor of the state's most powerful newspaper, flooded his pages with racist caricature and manufactured stories designed to enrage white voters. The propaganda had a goal: to make the coming violence feel like self-defense. They needed a spark, and they manufactured one. A black newspaper editor named Alexander Manly had published an editorial challenging the racist myths used to justify lynching. His words were truthful and unwelcome, and the white press reprinted them in distorted form for months, holding them up as proof of black insolence that had to be answered. The 1898 election came, and through intimidation and fraud, the white supremacist Democrats claimed victory at the state level. But that wasn't enough. Wilmington's city government wasn't up for election that year. Its fusionist officials were still legally in office. So 2 days after the election, the men who had planned this moved to finish it. On the morning of November 10, 1898, a mob of up to 2,000 armed white men gathered. They first destroyed the offices of Alexander Manly's newspaper, burning the building to the ground. Then they moved through the city's black neighborhoods. What followed was not a battle. It was a massacre. Armed white men, some using a rapid-fire gun mounted on a wagon, moved through black wards and shot people in the streets. Black residents who tried to defend their homes were outgunned and overwhelmed. And here is where the honest historian has to stop and admit what the record cannot give us. We do not know how many people died. The confirmed dead number in the dozens by some accounts. Other estimates run to the hundreds. Bodies were reportedly buried in unmarked graves or thrown into the river. The uncertainty is not an accident of poor record-keeping. It is what happens when the people who commit a massacre are also the people who write its history. While the killing was still underway, the coup's leaders executed the political half of their plan. They forced the elected mayor, the alderman, and the police chief to resign at gunpoint one by one. In their place, they installed their own men. Alfred Waddell, the former congressman who had helped whip up the mob, was declared the new mayor of Wilmington that same afternoon. By nightfall, a legally elected biracial government had been removed by force and replaced by the men who overthrew it. That is the textbook definition of a coup. The aftermath was its own act of violence. In the days that followed, prominent black citizens and their white allies were rounded up and banished, marched to the train station and forced out of the city under threat of death, never to return. Thousands of black residents fled Wilmington permanently, abandoning homes and businesses. A city that had been majority black, with a thriving black middle class, was deliberately and permanently transformed. The wealth and power that community had built was simply taken. And then came the final act, the story. The men who seized Wilmington understood that a coup needs to be renamed to survive. So it was recorded as a race riot, a phrase that implies both sides fought. That version went into the newspapers, then into the history books, and it stayed there for a century. Generations of North Carolinians were taught that Wilmington had a riot, not that it had its government overthrown. The correction did not come until our own lifetime. In 2000, the North Carolina legislature established a commission to investigate what had actually happened. In 2006, that commission released its report, and it did not use the word riot. It described a coup d'etat and a massacre, planned and carried out by named individuals, and it documented how the cover-up had been constructed and maintained. The state that had allowed the lie to stand for 100 years finally put the truth into the record. But a report cannot return what was taken. The families driven out never got their homes back. The political power stripped from Wilmington's black community did not return for generations. The coup succeeded so completely that its success became invisible, folded into the ordinary landscape of the segregated South, as if it had always simply been that way. So remember the word, because the word was the weapon. They called it a riot to make it sound like no one was to blame. It was a coup, planned by the powerful, carried out with guns, and hidden inside a lie for 100 years. The most effective cover-ups don't erase the event. They just rename it and wait for everyone to forget there was ever anything to hide. This is Dark Chapters in History. Subscribe and stay in the dark with us.